Minister, Chairman Su, and President Song, thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. I want to talk about venture capital investments, about Israel, and about our collaboration potential with Korea. Of course, to focus on the bio area. Until recently, Israel was leading the world in the expenditure in R&D out of the GDP. We were number one. I think it was 4.5 or 4.6% out of our GDP. 2 years ago, Korea passed us and became the number one. So now we are only number two. So it means that Korea and Israel focus very much on the policy of investing in technology, investing in research and development. So, talking about investment and about government investment, I want to show you that in Israel at least, the portion of the government is not so big. So talking about investment in technology and R&D, the most important player is the private sector. And as you can see here, the private sector is only 3/4 of the investment in technology companies, in technology development. And the government is only 25% or 26.7%, but still the government has a lot of power, of course, because the government can decide about the policy and decide about where people are going to invest. So some history about Israel and how Israel was developed in the technology area. You know, in the early 90s, or between 85 but to the beginning of the 90s, there was a market failure in Israel because small companies could not emerge as successful companies. There was lack of experience, lack of money, and lack of a good workforce in this type of companies. So the government decided to do three major things. One is the establishment of the Chief Scientist's Office, which was before this time a while, and this office is just funding projects in companies. The size of the budget today is about $400 million a year. Second step at that time that the government took is to create incubators. And in 2 years, we did about 24 incubators all over Israel. The major idea was to give new ideas and new entrepreneurs the chance to start their company. And the third move, more or less at that time, was the establishment of venture capital. The venture capital was not exist before in the 1990s. So the government decided to take the initiative and start the venture capital by establishing a government company, which called Yozma. And in 5 years, Yozma created a market for venture capital of about $250 million with the creation of 10 new funds, 10 small new funds that invest in early stage companies. So these funds were very successful, and after 5 years, the government decided that there is no reason to be involved anymore, so this company was privatized, and since then, Yozma became a private company. What is the outcome after the privatization that was in 1997? So Yozma was acted as a government company between 92 and 97. And then it was like, in a way, it was privatized. What happened after that? The boom that Yozma started create, as you can see from the number here, create a market of about 26 in the next 15 years, $26 billion investments into companies. Also create a movement of merger and acquisition with foreign big companies, mainly from the US, of about 70 billion merger and acquisition. And Israel at that time became well known as a technology hub in the world. And the reason that it was happened is first because of the fast catalyzation of the creation of the venture capital market in Israel. Second, because it was successful. And third, because from the beginning, from the inception of a company or from the inception of a fund, people think global. So there are two major features of the Israeli industry, if you like, or the Israeli ecosystem, is going global and taking risk. So people don't afraid to take risk, don't afraid to fail, and failure is not something which is the end of the world. This brought all the results that you can see here. On top of that, as I said, the movement of merger and acquisition started in the mid-90s, and many big companies started to buy small companies in Israel and continued to hold it, not only because of the technology they bought, but also because of the people. So they expand the activity, and you can see now many international, I think close to 300 international companies working in Israel as kind of research centers. Most of them came through an acquisition of a small Israeli company. I think overall people can, say maybe it's not so good for the economy. I think it's very helpful for the Israeli economy. First, because you get the presence and the experience of big international companies, which is very important. And secondly, which is not less important, many people that work in those companies are spin-off. It's a phenomenon in Israel that people like to live the work they do and try their own career or try a new career. So it's a very good place to get educated and then start your own company or join a small company. So overall, I think the contribution of this type of international companies in Israel was huge. Now, if you look at the distribution between what we call the IT or ICT industry and the life science industry, big names, we have only recent years get to 28% out of the total investment in life science. In terms of international companies, most of them are not coming from healthcare. We have some device company, Johnson & Johnson is present there, and Philips and some others, but you can count them on 10 fingers. The reason for that is first because we did not have too many venture capital that like to invest in new companies. And as you can see, number of funds also that invest only in healthcare is only 10%. Some other funds also invest in healthcare in other fields, but only dedicated to healthcare, there are not too many funds. Again, the reason was that for investors, it's too costly, too a long time. So they try to go to an easier part of the investment, which are in the ICT areas. But successes in life science companies in Israel was higher than in ICT even. So why biotechnology become a national priority in Israel? Because, first of all, you can see most of the effort in the universities, in the research, are in biotechnology. 60% of the publications are in this area. Secondly, which is not less important, of course, is that more than 35% of the money invested in academic research is for this area, biotechnology. So the government should decide, whether to continue, because universities are mostly funded by governments, to continue to fund the research in the universities because not too much results. The transfer of technology is difficult. Many of the ideas are licensed to foreign companies. So the question was for the government whether to continue to put much effort in the research, in the university research, or to decrease it, or to try and parallelly to increase the effort to create kind of commercialization of this type of research. And since the decision was taken, much more money from the Chief Scientist's Office, from the government, went to biotechnology. Even the government invited venture capital from US that are focusing on medical and biotech to come to Israel. They got very good conditions. And as a matter of fact, the leader of the American funds today in Biopharma, which is called Orbimed from New York, I think they are managing about $2 billion in investments in biotechnology companies. They are now having a fund in Israel in the size of $250 million. They came because the government asked them to come and gave them a lot of incentive, if it is tax incentive, investment into the fund, and so on. Also, the transfer of technology in Israel, which is of course a very important tool, because of the importance of this issue. As you know, we have good 5 transfer of technology companies that have a very nice results. I talked about the incubators. The incubators, it's a very interesting phenomenon you can see here. Most of the companies or entrepreneurs that apply to the incubators are in life science area, in biotechnology, medical devices. As you can see, more than half of the companies in the incubators, and they go to the incubators because they have no other chance. Venture capital do not invest in such companies in very early stage. Compared to the general field areas that invested in Israel, it's about double. So most of the companies in healthcare today are created in incubators. I'm saying it because I want to show, I don't have enough time, so I want to show you some trends that are now happening in the world of biotech. First, if you look at this slide, you can see this is the US market. Always the US market is the leader. What happened in the US market possibly will happen in Israel in a few years, if not earlier. So what you can see here, that money that was invested in, okay, I get more time, okay. Money that was invested in companies is much more than money that was raised, okay? The lower curve is the money that was raised, and the higher one is the money that was invested by venture capital. So there is a gap. There is a gap. And who is filling this gap? It's very interesting. And I think it's a trend that started 2 or 3 years ago. The ones who are filling this gap are corporate venture fundings of the big pharmas. They started to look at early stage companies, and they invest, as you can see, close to 90% are in early stage. Early stage, when they say early stage, it means from seed to around until round B. So there is a lot of interest now, also of the big pharma venture funds, into investment in early stage. Another group that invest in this area and filling the gap are funds which are not venture capital, hedge funds, private equity funds that find the interest to invest because they saw many companies in early stages go public or merged. So the fact that we have now companies that can have what in our language called exit, so in other words, to return nice money to their investors, happened very early after the investment. It can happen even 4 years after the investment, 5 years, because it's early stage. And in early stage, if you can take a company public, it's a success. These push the big guys, the private equity, the hedge funds, also to invest in later stages. They are strong in the later stages and leave all the early stages to the corporate funding and also to venture capital. Another thing that you can see changes in the last years is that biotech become much more popular than devices. As you can see here, most of the investment in 2015 at least was in bio, and there is a decrease in the investment in medical devices. The reason for that, again, is what is pushing the market is the exit market. If investors see that biotech companies can exit easier than medical device companies, they will invest more in the bio. The same here as before. You can see that Series A, or the first investment by a venture fund called Series A. So if you can see, most of the investment are done in Series A, and in bio there are more than in the devices area. If you look at the areas where the money goes for, in biopharma it goes to oncology first. Oncology is first, and not only first in the term of how much you invest in it, but also that in this area most of the investment are in early stage companies. In the other areas there are some investment in early stage, but not as in anti-cancer drugs. Numbers you can see here. I don't have time to focus on any chart. I just want to show you the trends that are happening now in this industry, which is important. In the device areas, cardiovascular still leading the investment, but if you look at the proportion of the early stage and later stage in this device area, you will see that less investments are in early stage than you could see it in the biopharma. This may show you the best illustration about where the money goes. And if you look at the oncology, it's amazing how much money in how many companies the money goes for as early stages. And that's very interesting phenomenon. I think it makes people, and especially government and venture capital and investors, to think well about where and how they want to put their money. So I want to come back to Israel for a moment, because I'm talking about early stage companies that become very important now, and they might have much more chances. So in Israel, if you can look at this chart, most of the companies in bio or in, let's say, life science, most of the companies are in early stages. About 80%, more than 80%, are out of the whole industry, of course, are early stage companies. And another thing which you could say in Israel is the ecosystem of venture capital or ecosystem of investors, which is very important. If you look at the bottom of this pyramid, you will see that, first of all, you will see that all the stages are covered, which means that the ecosystem is very good because everyone can get or has an address how we can raise money, if it's a small company or a big company. But what is important to what I said before is that for the early stage, which was risky and was less attractive until a few years ago, we have now a very good ecosystem based mainly on angels investors. And angels are very important because many of them are people that are coming out of the industry, so they can coach a new company. But the other very important thing about angels is that venture capital will invest only in a company only if they see a good angel investor at the beginning. So for biopharma, you need, and also for medical devices, you need an infrastructure, I think also here, for seed investment by experienced people that understand what they do, and they can choose or they can pick up good idea and start a company, and then I believe the venture funds will follow. Other trends, I'm not going to talk because I don't have time, but as you know, still to develop a new drug costs a lot of money and a lot of time. And there are many more enablers now in the market, if it is diagnostic enablers or efficacy enablers that help to accelerate the time to market. But still, there is a need for more effort. As you can see now, there is much more collaboration in the market with the big companies and small companies, and there is a push for going more towards personal treatment, personal medicine, as it can. As I said, these are the trends that you can see in research, and what is important about it is that you will see new type of companies in the market of healthcare. And these are the IT companies. Digital health become popular also. And the technology that the IT companies develop during the years enable them to come into this market of healthcare, and in few years might become big players. And I believe, and I see that Samsung is already in this area, and I believe that other companies in Korea who have this type of basic technology to run into this new field will be a major player, as Google and as Apple, who are putting much more effort into the healthcare area. So the future, I think, for this industry is bright. I think we will see much more investment. By the way, the American market of venture capital invests only 16% out of the total in medical device and biopharma. It's increasing. As you could see in Israel, it's higher than that. It's increasing. So I believe that investors, and according to the trends, will like this area more, and this will bring, of course, better companies, better research, and better future for biopharma and medical devices. And I hope that collaboration between us can be successful as well. Thank you very much.